The COYGIG Pod on OTB SPORTS, in association with Cadbury. A player and a half deserves a glass and a half of support.
Top pocket goal!
It's what dreams are made of.
They are going to the World Cup Finals!
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the COYGIG podcast. I'm Kathleen McNamee and I am joined as ever by former Ireland internationals Emma Byrne and our birthday girl for the day, Karen Duggan. Karen, have the birthday wishes been rolling into you today and over the weekend?
They have. I'm feeling the love. Feeling very old, but loved all the same.
That's good. Well, if any listeners want to send Karen some birthday love, you can do that on the COYGIG podcast new Twitter account at the COYGIG Pod, and we will pass them along to her. Your teammates gave you possibly the best birthday present you could get at the weekend with a big top of the table win, 1-0 over Shells. What was the feeling around the dressing room after that?
We were just buzzing because we obviously got hammered by them earlier in the year, and that's never a nice feeling. They've been our main rivals for a long time now, so just to kind of put that to bed was very, very nice. And obviously it's an important 3 points because we have two really big games before the break with Athlone and Rovers coming up, so just gives us a bit of confidence going into those couple of games that we are still thereabouts, and we're taking along nicely.
Would you call yourselves the Chelsea of the season so far? Because a lot of your results have been not necessarily absolutely whopping wins. You know, there's been a few 1 or 2 nils that have just seen you through nicely.
I'd be more than happy to be the Chelsea this season, to be fair. Yeah, that's why I was it's hard to kind of predict what way our matches will go, because there have been games that we've been scraping, and then there's been games where we've played well and not put the score lines up that we should have. So yeah, like I said, we'll take being Chelsea. Women, obviously, not men.
Of course, no. You don't want to be them. Although Pochettino's just in, so you never know. He might do a job with them next year if he's able to cull some of that team.
If he's allowed to, yeah.
If he's allowed to, that is also true. Emma, how was your weekend?
Yeah, very, very nice. The weather is very temperamental. It's like tropical weather here, honestly. It's absolutely scorching 1 minute and then thunderstorms the next. So don't really know what to do with ourselves, but all good. Went for a nice Brazilian dinner yesterday.
I'm glad you said dinner. I didn't know where you were going.
Me too.
Summer is coming though. So it was nice not to eat pasta or pizza for a change. I'm actually buzzing. I'm going back to Barcelona this week and I'm buzzing to get back. So yeah, very excited.
I don't know if the words "it's nice not to eat pizza and pasta for a bit" has ever been uttered before, but
yeah, that would never leave my lips.
No, seriously, you get really sick of it. I'm sick of it. Sick of pasta. I'm not doing enough either to warrant eating these carbs. It's not good. Not
but
good.
I did see your tweet that you put up just before we started recording that if you ran as much as you kissed your dogs, you'd be running marathons all over the place.
Yeah, it's true. If I even did 50% of the amount I say I'm going to do or think about doing, because I'm constantly thinking about exercise, I just never do it. So yeah, I need to change a little.
It's the weather. Blame the weather.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm blaming the weather for sure.
The WSL is over now as well, so that frees up a bit of the although we still have Champions League next weekend and then the World Cup is fast approaching, so
there'll always be something. Always an excuse. I mean, the dogs don't even want to go out anymore. They've got lazy. It's just rubbing off on them. It's terrible influence.
Yeah, speaking of the World Cup, I've just spotted today's date, and this will be going out on Tuesday, but we're recording on Monday. And it's exactly 1 month until the announcement of the World Cup squad, which is very exciting and also very terrifying for everyone involved. More so the players than me, but I just get a leap in my heart every time I think about the prospect of we actually have to go and play a World Cup now. The season isn't over. How are you guys feeling a month out? Do you think anyone has particularly staked a claim maybe in the last couple of weeks, or even we had the news during the week that Aoife Mannion has kind of re-injured her knee, no structural damage, so she should be all right for the World Cup, but no confirmation there one way or the other.
Well, I think that the fact that it's only Aoife we're talking about, and hopefully she'll be all right, is great. That was for me the first thing, especially in the last game. All I kept thinking of, no injuries, please, no injuries, and there weren't, which is fantastic. And also the girls who were injured for long periods of time have all come back. So Vera Pauw is actually in a great position. She doesn't have to worry about anybody. But also a difficult position because she's going to have to make some difficult choices. So I think firstly, it's great. Everybody's fit. Most are playing, not everybody. So it's looking good so far. But I think it's going to be really interesting. I mean, there's a few rumors here and there, and I'm just looking forward to see who gets in, really, and who doesn't, more than anything.
Yeah, I think the tough choices have been made. So when we see the provisional squad that goes in, I think it's around the 12th that they're going into camp.
Yeah, that's the 12th, I think.
So we'll get all of our shocks and surprises then.
Yeah, I think that's a 28-player squad, is it? And then
27, I think.
27, which
Plus,
is like
there's 4 American girls playing in America to come back into the mix as well. So really, it's a 34, I guess, or 30. That's bad maths. 33.
31.
31.
It's Monday.
That's email with age.
Yeah, I was thinking about that for a sec. Not your maths, but I was like, oh, that would just leave like one person who wouldn't be. I know it's 23 in the squad, but obviously 3 players are going over to Australia anyways as stand-in players. You wouldn't want to be the one person, but I forgot about the Americans that are still to come in. Well, we will be providing you guys, the listeners, with all the updates in the lead up to the World Cup. And there's so much happening. There's the FAI's international awards. There's going to be a ceremony going away for all the players. There's, of course, the games against Zambia and France and anything that may happen news-wise in between. So don't worry. Despite the fact the season has ended in the WSL, the podcast is sticking around and there will be plenty of action during the World Cup as well. So please do keep listening, keep getting your questions into us and keep joining in all the chat because it's a lot more fun when we have you guys sending in questions and stuff to us as well. The COYGIG podcast on OTB Sports is sponsored by Cadbury FC, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland women's national team. Now, coming up next, instead of our usual team of the week, we have Emma Carroll and her team of the season. So Emma, luckily you didn't have to do a full team of the week this week because there was like every single game kicking off at the same time and it was pretty chaotic. You were sending me photos of your setup, which I thought was quite impressive. I thought I was doing well because I had one game on the TV, one on my phone, and then Twitter open for the rest of them.
You were live tweeting, so I thought that was probably more impressive because I was struggling to keep up with it.
There was a lot of refreshing being done on like live score and stuff, and then like someone would score and then trying to like rewind to see the video or see the goal properly so I could actually put something out about it. But you've done us up a team of the season, which has some interesting omissions, I have to say, whenever you sent it through. But I'll let you run through it first and then we can dive into it a bit more.
Yeah, we've got Earps in goal, McCabe, Greenwood, Letizier and Badier at the back, Galton, Manham and Wrighton in a very attacking midfield, and Shaw, Daly, and I've went for Sam Kerr up front.
Yeah, I was looking around at a couple of teams and I feel like the defense anyways is pretty set, but then there's just like one or two other ones that maybe would change. I know one area in particular you wanted to talk about was Kerr and the fact that Beth England did not make it into your squad despite hauling Tottenham through the season.
Yeah, so I remember on Friday morning we had a brief conversation after Sam Kerr was given the Football Writers Award or whatever it was at the first ever Women's Football Awards, and I was like, she's not even in my team of the season. How did she get Player of the Year? And then she scores on Saturday, and then I'm kind of thinking, she scored in all of the big moments, and I'm trying to think whether is bringing your team to a title or saving your team from relegation more important, and they're probably on a par. And Beth England her goals probably single-handedly saved Spurs, in fairness. But then I'm thinking Sam Kerr plays for Australia and she's in our group in the World Cup, And I'm going to assume that she's going to consume every ounce of Irish media in the run up, and she's going to pin this team of the season to the dressing room wall. And I don't want to give any more ammunition to Sam Kerr because she's already good enough as it is. So I went and put her in my team.
Emma, you're doing your patriotic duty there that many people wouldn't even think of.
Maybe I overthink it.
Yeah, I think you thought about that a bit too much.
Yeah. I've been back and forward all weekend, and that England was probably edging it until I kind of was like, oh yeah, no, I don't want this to come back and bite me. And Sam Kerr like score a hat trick against us on the opening day of the World Cup.
Emma, you look like you have many thoughts about this.
That's it took me a minute there to actually understand what you were saying.
Where am I going with this?
Basically, she's in your team because you're afraid she would want to like murder you.
I know, just
and
murder Ireland on the opening day of the World Cup, really.
Take it out on our girls. Okay, I get it. But to be fair, I think she deserves to be in there. I mean,
she's class.
She might not have lit the league on fire this season, but she is a magic reason why Chelsea have won the league, and I think that's more important. And to be quite honest, I don't think Tottenham would have really gone down. I think they had the players in there. It just so happens that when you've got a player like Bethany England in your team, you do tend to rely on her a little bit, but I think they would have found their goals. Which makes me wonder how Bethany England would have done in a better team. Would she be in the England squad right now? I'm not sure. She's a great player. And I also think she's going to be absolutely devastated if she's not in that team, which I don't blame her. But Sam Kerr would have been in my team of the year anyway, because you can rely on her. She is one of the best strikers. She doesn't always get the service, but when she does get it, she's absolutely quality. So yeah. Not because I'm afraid she'll murder me in my sleep.
I wouldn't go that far.
But you're not afraid of anyone, so.
Oh, I am. I'm not going to mention any names. But yeah.
You were giving this team a few applauses earlier. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a very good team. It's obviously
all
very
the United representation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very Italian thing. There's plenty of United representation. If you were trying to sneak someone else in, I actually would have maybe given up a United player to get Kenza Daly into it somehow, possibly, just because the Daly Daly link up was magic, to be fair. But it's really hard to argue against anyone else. I don't have any qualms about this, to be fair.
I might have, I think Galton for me will be a question mark. Has she been consistent every single game? I'm not sure. She's had a great season, but I'm not sure she would have stood out as much as, for example, Daly, who I absolutely love. I thought she's been brilliant for Villa.
Hansen was really good as well.
The who?
Hansen for Villa as well. She's been really good all season as well. So
Hansen has been excellent the second part of the season, and Daly's been excellent the first part. So they've kind of like just seemed, in general, the two of them have been brilliant. Greenwood, she's been the start of the season. She was brilliant. I was proper bigging her up, like absolutely brilliant. Then I have a feeling she got some niggles or something because she kind of dropped off a little bit. So for me, I'm not so sure, but then trying to find a centre back that actually stood out.
That's it. I'm trying to think of someone else and I can't.
Yeah, I was actually going through the rest of the teams of the week, kind of trying to figure out who stood out, and Greenwood was probably in the most, and then maybe Bright was in a fair few as well, and Eriksson was in a fair few, so it was kind of a toss-up between the three of those, but I think Greenwood probably had a little bit of a longer stretch of consistency, so she just kind of edged it, and that's just pure opinion rather than like any stats or anything.
Yeah, I mean, Leah Williamson was brilliant until she got injured. It seems a little bit bad that we don't include her just because she got injured. But also a team who hasn't been in team of a player who hasn't been in team of the league who I thought was brilliant, and I said it before, was Turner for Villa. I thought she was really good, the captain for Aston Villa. But again, Nothing wrong with that team. Absolutely nothing.
If you were talking about the winning and losing upper ends of the table, Leipzig for Leicester was huge for them staying up. Absolutely huge. And I'm delighted she got them those kind of points, because I felt like they did deserve to stay up. And I know they're gonna probably try and sign her, but I'd say they'd be doing well. I think that she's on a lot of people's radar now. Byrne we just want her back.
It will also, I think United are linked with her as well, as a backup. But it will be interesting to see what happens with Leicester after the men's team being relegated as well.
She doesn't need to be anyone's backup.
How much of a backing the women's teams usually start losing out when the men's teams suffer. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to them.
Yeah, it's worrying.
Leicester, I know like they haven't necessarily done it in terms of like the money they've put into the team, but even their like lower setups, they've put quite a bit into it, and like actually developing systems within the club. So it'll be interesting specifically to see with those as well, because like I think what they did really well was they bought and loaned very cleverly over January, and that's probably what saw them through. And I mean, if there's a manager there that's going to be able to handle it well, it probably would be Willie Kirk. There was only one other person I had a shout for, which I thought was Erin Cuthbert, because I thought she was one of the most consistent players throughout the entire season. Even if you do look at her stats across like Chelsea, she was like one of their top 3 performers across the entire season, and also one of the most consistent performers, just because she obviously wasn't getting as many niggles as everyone else. So she was a name I'd like to throw in there. No complaints.
Hard to find space for another midfielder, but I really enjoyed watching Hasegawa. For City as well. I think she's a baller.
She showed some weakness towards the end as well, though.
Like
her strength. We talked about her physical strength maybe being her only weakness, and I think that showed. Like if I were to play City, I'd definitely be putting pressure on her after watching her last few games. Yeah.
Has to give a shout out as well to Frida Manum, who looks like she's signing a contract extension with Arsenal, which will make Arsenal fans quite happy, I think. Second top scorer in all competitions, top scorer for them, WSL. Started 29 of Arsenal's last 30 games. So even just from that alone, like when the team needed her to step up, she really did.
Actually, you just mentioning Arsenal there, I would have probably put Raffaelli in there. I thought she was brilliant this season, and I think she's a huge loss for Arsenal. Massive. So maybe she would have got in there as the left centre back.
I think you can tell her influence by just kind of the outpouring of emotion about her leaving, even though she was only there for such a short stint. It's like obvious that she made a massive impact and was quality when they needed her. It's just a pity about the injuries and her and Williamson not being able to form the partnership as long as they would have liked. But yeah, she obviously wants to move on to sunnier climates.
It's going to be interesting to see who Arsenal sign in, because they've got 2 centre backs to replace basically, because Williamson's probably going to miss most of next season. So
not easy. It's actually easier to find attacking players. There aren't a huge amount of really, really good defenders out there. So that is going to be difficult. They might have to go abroad for that. Yeah. Or they could recall some players that they have released in the past. Released with bad decisions, I think.
Such as?
Well, I think Ruby Mace, for example, I think she's a great little player, and she can play centre back, she can play holding midfielder, she did for Leicester. I think she's a great player. Definitely wouldn't have let her go. And well, they wanted to release Katie at one stage. So, these decisions, I don't know who's making these decisions, but I'm not sure about their recruitment. And I said it, I tweeted it, it's all about who they recruit over the summer, because Arsenal, they're in a position where they can go on to be the top team in Europe. I can see that. Or they can go on to be a mid-table team. And it all depends on their signings this summer. I think it's that important.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would feel that way about Arsenal, and we will get into it a little bit more as well when we are looking at how all the teams have done in general. But did want to briefly touch on Emma's 11 to watch, which she gave us at the very start of the season. Kind of 50-50. Some of them have featured here in your like team of the season, and then other ones met an unfortunate early end to their season due to injuries and stuff. So Brosnan, Daly, in the back line, of course, because that's where she played when we were at the start of the season. She wasn't a forward, and many people who would just watch the WSL sides: Buchanan, Letizier, Jessu, Hurtig, Little, Missy Cairns, Mary Fowler, Leanne Kiernan, and Sam Kerr.
Yeah, I think I jinxed half of them. They've all kind of had long-suffering injuries as well, by the sounds of it.
I was going to say, Evan, would you like to make a formal apology?
I know, poor Jessu. I'm like, and Leanne Kiernan. Gee, I hope I didn't cause those injuries.
I like the way how you're like on this thing today that you have this mystical.
Yeah, so much power. Like, no, like I was looking there, it's like, so 3 of those players are in the team of the season. That's not bad. I think we did caveat Daly when we were saying it. If we went back and actually listened, that she would be a forward and not a left back. That was just after the Euros. Kim Little, I actually even half considered it. I was like, she had such a good season when she was playing. It's like she could make it in there. We see Bo Kearns has actually had a decent season for Liverpool as well. And then yet the rest got like injuries all around, really. Apart from Fowler, who just didn't get that much game time at City for some reason. I would have liked to see a little bit more of her.
Yeah, because when she did play, she's a quality player. She looks really good. She's class on the ball, really good touches. It's just one of those mysteries of Man City. One of the mysteries of Man City.
Many mysteries.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I mean, she's conceded that she's young and that she's there for experience, which is very modest of her. I think, it's very humble, but she's good enough to play in any team. So maybe she'll be pushing for a starting position next season.
Hopefully we don't see too much about her at the World Cup. And she saves it for next season. She can save it for then. I'd like to see her do very well. I just don't want her to do it at the World Cup against us. Emma, thank you so much for all the teams of the week this season. I am sure we will get you on board for some Champions League World Cup action over the next couple of weeks. But having done 1 or 2 teams of the week myself, I know how much effort and work goes into them. So very much appreciated that you take that baton on every week.
No problem.
So sadly, we have come to the end of the WSL for another season, and Chelsea have, as expected by pretty much everyone in the run-up, have become champions for the 4th time in a row. Much of the team have said since that they won at the weekend that this league title means more than any of the ones that have come before. And you can kind of see it with, the season they've had between MA's surgery, the players in the team who have been injured, losing key players at the end of the season like Magda Eriksson and Pernilla Harder. There definitely was an emotion to the end of this season that maybe there hasn't been in previous years. In the end, they ran out very, very easy winners against Reading, which ultimately saw them relegated to the championship, and to be seen what happens with them, especially with the situation at the men's team. But Emma, Chelsea, winners. How did you feel when the final whistle blew across all of those fixtures starting at the exact same time and it was official that Emma Hayes and co had done it once again?
Yeah, I think it's been an absolutely brilliant season. I've really enjoyed it. And I think all of those games basically summed up the season for those respective teams. You had Chelsea who, they basically hammered Reading. They deserved it. They were scrappy, but they managed to get their wins and they won. It was a bit of a dirty win of the season for them. There was nothing fantastic about Chelsea this season, but they just knew how to get the wins, and that was it. So actually, I don't mind seeing a team like that because I quite like a fighting team. For Reading, kind of sum their season up. They've been very poor, just little things, little mistakes, just basic stuff that they were doing wrong. But there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes with them. Very demotivating, which I think you could see on the pitch. And then with Arsenal losing 2-0 to Villa, I think that basically summed them up as well. They just didn't have any players that could come off the bench that could change anything. The midfield was lacking a lot. And they just weren't able to keep up with Villa, who were excellent. And for me, excellent all season. A team that if all the teams were playing, I would watch Villa over any other team, just because I think they're exciting, they're honest, they're an attacking team. And I think the fact that they have a player, the Pichichi, I was going to say, it's, the Spanish goal scorer of the league. I think she's been brilliant. And it just shows she's had good service. Hansen's been brilliant as well. Daly, they've had players that I've really enjoyed watching. So I just think it's been a really good end to it as well, because the kind of every game had its own little story. That's been the whole story of the league. And I think Chelsea did deserve it. I think City were very classy in their performances towards the end of the season, but it's a lesson for them. You can't start like that and expect. You might have been able to do that 10 years ago. You can't do it now. You just can't get away with losing and drawing games at the start of the season like that. So I think next season is going to be even more interesting, to be honest, because I think there were a few lessons learned. And you just can't afford to have a squad also that's a little bit depleted. You need a good squad. And I think we're going to see a lot of movement towards the latter end of the summer.
Well, even already, I don't think the transfer window opens for another couple of weeks. And there's been so much talk about players moving or going for, medicals. I think one of the latest ones this week is Hayley Raso at United is going to a medical with Real Madrid this week. And there's just every couple of hours, there's transfer stuff already happening. And I definitely think that's a increase on previous years. I think it also says a lot that Chelsea, to win this title, had to record the most ever wins in a WSL season, and also the most points across an entire campaign. And that's with United chomping at their heels and ahead of them for a lot of the season. So it just shows of the competitiveness in general of the league this year. And I know it's something we've said throughout it. Karen, from a United point of view, it was probably pretty, once the goals started going in at Chelsea, there wasn't really all that much left to do, but I suppose ending things on a high.
Yeah, it kind of felt inevitable that Chelsea were going to lift the title. You said that there was an air of emotion to it. I feel like Chelsea are just so robotic in how they win things that it's just they're like Man City now. They're just they're used to it. So they're natural born winners. But I think at the start of the season, if you said to United they'd be a couple of points off Chelsea, and comfortably in the Champions League places, that's an improvement. That's progress. So I don't think they can be overly disappointed. They finally beat teams that they'd struggled to beat before, Arsenal, City, and they were the positions that they were gunning for, and they achieved that. So if you take a step back, it's a really, really good season for Man United, and nice to end it on a wing, not their most convincing, I suppose, but again, away to Liverpool. Liverpool had a good week previous to that, so yeah, we'll take it.
How much do you think the fact that United had a pretty stable squad, and I think they made one of the least amount of changes to their starting 11 compared to any other team? Chelsea, interestingly, made the most. They made 80 changes to their starting 11 over the season, which was 30 more than any other team.
Because they can afford to. They have the squad.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They have the squad and they're involved in the most competitions. They have to do that sort of rotation. But it's an issue we've talked about with City at different times, where it was hard to tell for a long time how, A, where Gareth Player would play players, and most of the time it was out of position, and B, who he would actually just randomly choose to put on. And then with Arsenal, obviously the issue was injuries. So how much do you think that probably helped United in a season like this, where things were a bit topsy-turvy?
Well, I think it's always the defensive unit that has to stay consistent and stable, and they've been able to do that. And obviously they've brought in Letitia, who has been really, really good for them, kind of stabilised the central partnership there. And Ona Bagier, obviously one of the best players in the league this season. So I think that was hugely important for them. Obviously, Mary Earps was in really good form as well, Golden Glove. But now I'm just a little bit worried about when Ona leaves, how can you replace a player like that? Like how much she offers to the team. But now that they have Champions League, I assume that they'll get the investment that they need to kind of build a squad to compete at that level, because that's what they will need to do. They can't depend on the same 11 players the whole time. Just Garcia maybe coming off the bench to pop up with a goal here and there. She's another player who'll probably be looking for a lot more game time next season and probably deserves it. So they really do need to strengthen their squad. I think they need another probably centre defender. Now they need a fullback. I think potentially another.
The market for central defenders this summer is going to be
it's going to be intense. It's going to be intense. But look, they know what they have to do. It's just about whether they're given the investment and whether players now see Man United as one of the big teams and as an attractive, like they'll have to get players, I think, from abroad. So do they now see that as an attractive option to them, potentially over Man City now, which would be huge, because Man City were the big name like before that.
Yeah, they're definitely the biggest team in Manchester at the moment anyways. And how long that continues
they're
remain.
big spenders. That's the big thing. City are big spenders. They pay a lot of money. I don't think that they've made great decisions with that money, but they pay a lot of money. And at the end of the day, this is where women's football has gone. It's about who can pay the most. And I wouldn't say United's budget was that great, but it has to be bigger because of Champions League football. That's a big draw, but it doesn't really matter. Great, you're in Champions League, but you're going to pay me 30,000 less than a team that's not in Champions League. Players are going to go to that team for the extra money. So they need to be able to pay it.
Yeah, and we talked about what's going on behind the scenes at Reading, and also Leicester men's team getting relegated. The ownership of Man United is obviously up in to question at the moment, so they need to get that sorted as well. That'll obviously feed into it. It's unfortunate that you still do have to depend on these things, but that's the reality of it.
Yep.
Yeah, there's actually been very little talk in general about, there's a lot about how it'll affect things on the men's side, but not all that much about on the women's side. It'd be interesting to see. Emma, you had tweeted, and we mentioned it earlier, about the fact that Arsenal will need to do well this summer in the transfer market, especially with those injuries that they had. We asked a couple of listeners as well, do they have any thoughts on who they might like the club to sign? So at Rose_AWSC said, for now, Sarri Holland, Chloe Lacasse and Hannah Bennison, plus some defenders and a forward. So she just wants a whole new team, basically, which is understandable with the injuries. And then at Yes Shahada, Carly Grant from Australia, Jessica Silva from Portugal, who's a very good player, Julia Grosso from Canada, also very good. Pro contract for the academy players, extension contracts from Manam, McCabe, Blackstenius, Viv, and Viv the Goat. I thought it said and Viv and the Goat, and I was like, who is the other one? And more psychologists, more physio, expand S&C team, and also more beautiful kits. So not asking for too much there. For you, what are the dream signings this summer?
Well, I think the dream thing is for the injured players to get back. You can't get any better than Vivian Miedema. She's quality. If you can get her back, and Bette Mead, but for me, Viv more, and Kim Little. If you can get those three players back, you've got some of the best players in the world. Anyway, three of some of the best. I personally think that, you know, they could do with a top class goalkeeper. I think Manu's done really well. I think she's a very good goalkeeper, but I would love to see a top goalkeeper go in there. And, you know, there's a couple of, you know, contracts ending, including Sandra Paños at Barcelona. Well, she has another year, but I reckon Arsenal could get her if they wanted to, because it's all about distribution for the goalkeepers now. Also shot stopping, you've got all of that. Paños is excellent at that. But she's also one of the best with the ball at her feet. And I think she would be a massive signing. But apart from that, getting the injuries back, I would definitely invest in a holding midfield. I don't know if Odegaard can turn into a female. Obrador from Wolfsburg. I just love her. I think she's brilliant.
Yeah.
Is the Barcelona turn around with like Panos and Oberdorf as their like two gets for the summer? I'd say people would be very, very happy.
But I also think you can tempt American players. The Americans have moments where they want to play in Europe and then they all flurry over. I think you could tempt some American players. I think they're very, very good. I don't think they're the best in the world, but I think you could definitely tempt a couple of those over. They just bring energy to the team.
Well, if you're going to do it, like the season after a World Cup is probably the best in the sense that they're not going straight into that whole cycle mentality.
Exactly. They're going to have time.
You need to be in the US so that we can see you. I know like Andonovski hasn't been as strict on that as like previous managers. But yeah, there still is that slight sort of thing of like, oh, I need to be playing in the US if I'm going to be on the US national squad.
Yeah. And do you know, like it's about looking around. La Liga F has got some really good players in there as well. You know, in Atletico Madrid particularly, who just won the cup. I think Bonini's very good plays for Argentina. I think they just need to scope everywhere. You know, and as much as I love Japanese players, I also think we need a lot of physicality in there as well. And Alessia Russo is going to be a great addition because she's definitely going. Sorry, Karen, she's leaving you. She's definitely going to Arsenal. I think she's going to be a great addition, not an amazing. She's not going to change everything for Arsenal, but I think she's going to be very, very good. So yeah, I mean, it looks okay, but I would just love Arsenal to put money on the table for a massive signing, because that mentally just, you know, it gives the whole team a boost and it just kind of sets the standards a little bit. And we haven't done that in a few years.
No, Miedemaut's probably the last kind of big name signing the team took on. A couple of like very good players in there who are well respected, but not that sort of like global superstardom name.
I mean, you could go for a Bonmati or a Guijarro if you really wanted to blow people's minds. Yeah. Get into Barca and get one of those Patrick Guijarro or Aitana Bonmati. It's not impossible.
You're just getting your hopes up now.
Not impossible. Especially with Mikel Arteta, if they have that link with the Spanish. If you get a call from Arteta asking, would you be interested in coming to the club? You're going to say yes either way. And that's the first battle.
Well, Arsenal are always talking about this one club vibe. Like the women were at the game at the weekend for the men and had like a big guard of honor and everything for them. So, you know, Arteta, get on that phone. Listen, and get
the men's manager has been known that they've contacted some players, female players, to try and coax them into coming. I didn't get a phone call from Arsene Wenger, but...
Arsene Wenger, if you're listening to this, Emma is still waiting by the phone. And then just to look at the bottom of the table as well, because you kind of have to give Leicester just some credit for how they turned their season around. We've mentioned it bits and pieces throughout the podcast already, but no points whatsoever mid-January. I was reading Tom Gary had a good piece in the Telegraph about how when Willie Kirk came in, what he actually did to kind of turn around the deficit. First WSL team to ever turn around a 7-point deficit, stay up. And about the fact that, you know, he sat down with the club and they set a points target internally that they thought would ensure their safety, based on historical data and projections from other seasons and stuff. They actually missed that target, but still stayed up. And Kirk said it was one of his biggest achievements to date, which is understandable when you consider how dire and how certain. There's definitely a montage in us every single week being like, yeah, Leicester definitely going down. Yeah.
Well, they were, and they didn't look like they'd any fight in them. Like, I just couldn't see where they were going to get that turnaround from, because again, it's a look at the silly mistakes and the basic things that they weren't doing, and I'm thinking, well, if they're not going to change that, they're not going to get another point for the rest of the season. And it just so happened that Reading inherited those mistakes, and Leicester just went from strength to strength. And it's like what Karen said, Leipzig for them was the most important player ever for any team in the WSL. She's been the most important for Leicester. And then you had players like Ruby Mace, who was very good for them. I think, Whelan was very good for them. She's always been a good player. I've always rated her, but just it's hard to drag a team by yourself. But when you get a collective amount of players working in that way, and a manager that instills that confidence, as Willie Kirk did, amazing things can happen. And mentally, it's like as if you leave that old mentality or bad luck and you rub off on someone else, and that's what happened. So when they started playing better, I just feel like it was that turnaround moment when they started improving and Reading started, getting worse. And that's probably because of Leicester and how they were doing. And that happens because when you're in that relegation, I mean, I've never been in a relegation battle, but I imagine that's what it's all. It's a lot of mental fights going on down there.
Yeah, they would have been like, when the likes of Spurs and Brighton and Reading started slipping up, they probably were like, oh, there's actually a lot of hope here. And I think Willie Kirk deserves a lot of credit, because I think a lot of the managers in and around them were getting fired or getting slated. And we see Konchesky's gone from West Ham today, like there's a big turnover there of management, but he came in and he got them playing a nice style of football, got them believing in themselves. So I think he deserves a lot of credit, and it'd be interesting to see with the full season ahead of him how he'll get on with them. I think, again, it's going to be about investment, but
a full transfer window as well.
The thing is, Bristol coming up as well, they are not going to have a big budget realistically. So Leicester will probably be involved in the relegation battle again next year, but Bristol really have an uphill battle too.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's mad. Like, Leipzig produced more saves than any other goalkeeper in the entire league, despite only joining them in January. So it just shows that actually the pressure as well that defense was under, and the fact that they were able to get a name like her in and create those sort of saves. Looking just across the league in general, obviously there's a lot of Irish players out of contract now. Marusha Littlejohn, for one, saying that she'd stopped playing the last couple of weeks because she wanted to save herself for the World Cup. Vaguely sounds like she may just be holding out for the World Cup and then seeing what happens afterwards. Sounds a bit like maybe a retirement. So you never know. Could be something else. Megan Campbell, Megan Connolly, Megan Walsh, also all out of contract and leaving their respective clubs. Be interesting to see where they'd land up. I mean, out of the three, Megan Connolly is probably the most likely to stay in the WSL, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, with Rusha, it's a strange one. She must have some really niggly injuries that, whether it's severe tendonitis or something.
Well, she has been so unlucky, like
with injuries, but you can't stop playing because you're unlucky. It has to be something that is basically you're being advised to rest it, or else you won't be able to perform. And I don't blame her. Like, it's a massive thing, and if she thinks she's very likely going to be picked in the squad, I don't blame her, because being injured at this point, and she does get injured, unfortunately. She's really unlucky, as you said. But I think Megan Walsh, this is a surprise for me, because she's started for Brighton. She's done well for Brighton. Like, she hasn't been a player that I would have said, she's struggling. She didn't struggle. She looked okay there. I think she will stay in the WSL, maybe Bristol team coming up, who knows. But yeah, it's difficult, because I think as much as the WSL has improved a lot, I think it's going to even change even more over the summer. I know that clubs are holding off on signing players, number one, because they need to get new managers in, some of them, and number two is they're just, they're waiting on budgets and stuff like that. But I think there's going to be an influx of foreign players, and that's not great for our, even though we are foreign, it's not great for our Irish players, because...
Well, it's what happened in the men's game. We saw it, like, in the early 90s, we had a lot more players playing, and our international was stronger as a result, and now they're in the lower leagues, and it probably will go that way.
Yeah, this year was like the least amount of Irish players playing in the Premier League ever, I think.
Yeah, so it's probably important to start looking at even professionalizing our league in Ireland a little bit more than we might anticipate, because we might have more players needing to stay here, because it might be the same level as your lower leagues international or in Europe. Be interesting. But Megan Connolly is one who I'm most interested to see where she goes.
I said Megan Walsh. I meant Megan Connolly. That's who I was talking about. Megan Connolly for Brighton.
Yeah.
I was listening to you talk and I was like, she was in and out of the squad. She wasn't
I'm pretty sure you were.
No, I meant Megan Connolly, the midfielder for Brighton.
Yeah, I'm really
too many Megans.
That's the thing. It's like literally the Spider-Man meme about all three of them leaving. Yeah, no, I would think she would stay somewhere. I think, like, as well, because Brighton haven't been all that good this season, she's possibly been overlooked a little bit for how much she did actually contribute to that team. Because I know everyone was a bit chaotic, but she was probably one of the more solid players, I think, anyways, in the squad.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. We will keep an eye on it over the next couple of weeks. Although you never know. With the World Cup year, it's always a bit strange as well, because sometimes players don't want to announce these sort of things until afterwards, because it's all laser focused.
To get it done, would you not? I think.
But you know that they might.
I think there should be a really huge investment from an Irish company into a club and make it an Irish club in the WFL and get all the Irish players.
We nearly had that at Birmingham.
I was trying to get that done when I was playing. I was like, let's all go to the same club, because you know what? It's you can put Irish players randomly in teams and they're good, but when they are together, it's different. It's like they just fight for each other. I guarantee you we do all right.
There you have it. If there's any
Bristol owners, if you're listening
into us. Come and get us, please. We're putting ourselves out there. Well, with that, we shall wrap this season, this WSL season anyways. Obviously, the Champions League final is this weekend, and we will be looking back on that. But Emma and Karen, thank you very much for going on the journey of this season. It was a pleasure. And I mean, it's not even that far away until the new season starts again. But until then, we will keep an eye across all the top news. Like I said at the start of the podcast, if you have any questions or if you just want to engage with the podcast a little bit, we have our new Twitter account at the COYGIG Pod, where we'll be posting all the updates about Irish Stars, about just general WSL, World Cup bits, anything you need to know, you'll be able to find there. Thank you very much for listening, and we shall see you all again very, very soon.
The COYGIG Pod on OTB, in association with Cadbury, official snack partner of the Republic of Ireland women's national team.